Some men test their brakes before they fail. I tested my marriage, before it broke. What I discovered destroyed everything I believed about love, trust, and a woman I thought I knew. Hello friends, welcome to our story. Before we begin, take a second to like this video, share it, and subscribe. And tell us in the comments where you're watching from, the United States, London, Canada, Jamaica, South Africa, Barbados, or anywhere in the world. My name is Michael Carter. 3 months ago, I had what most people would call a perfect life. A beautiful wife. A quiet suburban home. 2 cars in the driveway. The kind of life people show off online with captions like, blessed and grateful. It started on a Tuesday morning in my office. I work at Henderson Financial Group, or I should say, I worked there. I'm a senior analyst, pulling in about $12,000 a month. Good money. Comfortable money. The kind of money that lets you stop worrying about bills and start worrying about bigger things. Like whether your wife actually loves you, or just loves what you provide. I was sitting at my desk when my buddy James walked in. James is the kind of friend who tells you the truth even when it hurts, which is why most people don't like him, and why I trust him more than anyone. You look miserable, man, he said, dropping into the chair across from me. I'm fine. You're not fine. You've had that same look on your face for 3 months. Like someone's slowly poisoning your coffee and you can't figure out who. I stared at my computer screen, pretending to focus on the spreadsheet in front of me. But James was right. I wasn't fine. I hadn't been fine since I'd started noticing little things about my wife, Rachel. The way she smiled at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The way she'd started dressing nicer, even just to go to the grocery store. The way she becomes suddenly interested in going to the gym 5 times a week. It's Rachel, I said finally. James leaned back, crossing his arms. What about her? I don't know. Something's changed. She's different. Different how? I couldn't put it into words. It was nothing concrete. Nothing I could point to and say, see? There's the proof. It was just a feeling. A cold, sick feeling that had been growing in my stomach like a tumor. Forget it, I said. I'm probably just being paranoid. Or, James said slowly, you're paying attention. Look, man, I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear. But you need to hear it. What? Test her. I looked up sharply. What are you talking about? Test her. See what she's really made of. See if she's with you for you, or for what you give her. James leaned forward, his voice dropping. My cousin did this with his girlfriend. Pretended he lost his job. Within 2 weeks, she was gone. Moved out while he was at his mom's house. Didn't even leave a note. That's insane. No, that's smart. He found out who she really was before he married her. Before they had kids. Before she could take half of everything in a divorce. James studied my face. You've been married to Rachel for 5 years. You really think you know her? You really think you know what she'd do if the money stopped? I can't just pretend to lose my job, I said. That's crazy. Why not? What's the worst that happens? She supports you through it and you find out she's actually as good as you hope she is? That's a win. Or she shows her true colors and you find out now instead of 10 years from now when you have kids and a bigger mortgage. James stood up. Think about it, Mike. Really think about it. Because right now, you're driving yourself crazy with questions. Maybe it's time to get some answers. He left my office, leaving me alone with a thought that felt like poison and medicine at the same time. That night, I drove home through traffic that moved like cold honey, giving me too much time to think. Our house sat at the end of a quiet street lined with oak trees and perfect lawns. Rachel's car was already in the driveway, the silver sedan I'd bought her for her birthday 2 years ago. I sat in my car for a moment, looking at our house. Looking at the life we'd built. And I thought about James's words. Test her. The front door opened and Rachel appeared, silhouetted in the warm light from inside. She was wearing yoga pants and one of my old college shirts, her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful. Are you coming in or are you going to sit out there all night? She called, smiling. I got out of the car, walked up the driveway, and kissed her on the cheek. She smelled like vanilla and coffee. Rough day? She asked, following me inside. Long day, I said, which wasn't exactly a lie. Dinner was already on the table. Chicken, rice, vegetables. Rachel was a good cook, better than I deserved. We ate together, talking about normal things. Her day at the boutique where she worked part-time. The neighbor's new dog. A funny video she'd seen online. Normal. Everything was so perfectly normal. Except it wasn't. Because I was watching her now, really watching her, looking for cracks in the perfect picture. And I saw them. Small things. The way she checked her phone 3 times during dinner. The way she seemed distracted when I talked about my day. The way she smiled, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. After dinner, Rachel went upstairs to take a bath. I cleaned the kitchen, loaded the dishwasher, and tried not to think about what James had said. But the thought wouldn't leave me alone. It sat in my brain like a splinter, small but impossible to ignore. Test her. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Looked at our accounts. Joint checking. Joint savings. My name on the mortgage. My paycheck depositing every 2 weeks like clockwork. What would happen if that clockwork stopped? I thought about the stories I'd heard. Men who lost their jobs and watched their marriages collapse within months. Women who'd promised, for better or worse, but apparently hadn't read the fine print. I'd always told myself Rachel wasn't like that. Rachel loved me. Rachel would stick by me no matter what. But how did I know? How did anyone really know until they were tested? My phone buzzed. A text from James. Did you think about what I said? I stared at the message for a long time. From upstairs, I could hear water running. Rachel, in the bath, probably scrolling through her phone, living her separate life in her separate world. I typed back, what exactly would I have to do? 3 dots appeared immediately. James was ready for this question. Tell her you lost your job. Make it believable. Fake some documents if you need to. Then watch what happens. Give it 2 weeks. That's all you need. 2 weeks will show you everything. That's insane, I typed. That's insurance, James replied. What's insane is spending the rest of your life wondering if your wife actually loves you or just loves your paycheck. Your choice, man. But you already know what you're going to do. You wouldn't have asked if you weren't already considering it. He was right, and I hated that he was right. I deleted the conversation and sat there in my kitchen with its granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, all bought with my money, all part of the life I'd built for us. And I wondered if any of it was real. Rachel came downstairs an hour later, her skin pink from the hot bath, smelling like lavender and secrets. I'm going to bed, she said, kissing the top of my head. Don't stay up too late. I won't. But I did stay up. I stayed up until 2 in the morning, sitting in the dark, making a decision that would either prove my paranoia was unfounded or confirm my worst fears. By the time I went to bed, I'd made up my mind. I was going to do it. I was going to test Rachel. I was going to pretend to lose my job and see what happened. What I didn't know, what I couldn't possibly know, was that the truth I was about to uncover was so much worse than anything I'd imagined. The next morning, I started planning. It had to be believable. It had to be perfect. If Rachel suspected I was testing her, the whole thing would be meaningless. I needed documents. A termination letter. Fake emails from my boss. Maybe even a staged phone call. The more I thought about it, the more elaborate it became, until I realized I was planning a lie the way some people plan weddings. But I couldn't back out now. The doubt had planted itself too deep. At work, I told no one except James, who helped me create a fake termination letter on company letterhead he'd borrowed from HR. It looked official. It looked real. Downsizing. Budget cuts. Last hired, first fired, even though that wasn't true. When are you going to tell her? James asked, handing me the printed letter. Tonight, I said, my mouth dry. And then? And then I watch. I wait. I see who my wife really is. James clapped me on the shoulder. Call me if you need anything. And Mike? I hope I'm wrong about her. I really do. But his eyes said he didn't think he was wrong. His eyes said he'd seen this story before, and it never ended well. That evening, I sat in my car in the driveway again, the fake termination letter folded in my pocket, my heart pounding like I was about to commit a crime. Which, in a way, I was. A crime against trust. Against our marriage. Against everything we'd promised each other. But I had to know. I walked inside. Rachel was in the kitchen, making dinner again. She turned and smiled when she saw me, and for just a second, I almost couldn't do it. Almost backed out. Almost decided that loving someone meant trusting them, not testing them. Almost. Hey, babe, she said. How was your day? I took a breath. Pulled out the letter. Let it unfold in my shaking hands. We need to talk, I said. Her smile faltered. What's wrong? I lost my job. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. I watched her face, searching for her first genuine reaction before she had time to think, to calculate, to perform. What I saw made my blood run cold. For just a second, just a fraction of a moment before she caught herself, I saw something flicker across Rachel's face. Something that looked almost like relief. But then it was gone, replaced by shock and concern and all the right reactions. What? Michael, what happened? I handed her the letter, my hand steady now, my decision made. The test had begun. And I was about to learn exactly what kind of woman I'd married. Rachel read the letter, her eyes moving across the fake words, and I watched her face like a detective studying a suspect. Looking for tells. Looking for truth. When she looked up at me, her eyes were wet with tears. But were they real? That was the question that was going to haunt me for the next 2 weeks. That was the question that was going to destroy everything. Rachel's tears fell onto the termination letter, making small dark spots on the paper. She looked up at me, her bottom lip trembling. Michael, I don't understand. They just fired you. Without warning. Budget cuts, I said, the lie tasting like copper in my mouth. They're downsizing the whole department. 20 people let go today. She set the letter down on the counter with shaking hands. Oh my God. Oh my God, Michael, what are we going to do? It was the right reaction. The perfect reaction. Shock, concern, fear. Everything a loving wife should feel when her husband loses his job. So why did something feel off? We'll figure it out, I said, watching her carefully. We have savings. We'll be okay for a few months while I look for something new. A few months? Her voice went up an octave. Michael, the mortgage is $3,000 a month. The car payments. The credit cards. How are we supposed to, Rachel? I said. We'll figure it out. She pressed her hands to her face, breathing hard. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, this is a lot. I need a minute. She walked out of the kitchen, leaving me standing there alone with my fake letter and my real doubts. I heard her footsteps on the stairs. Heard our bedroom door close. I waited 5 minutes, then followed her up. She was sitting on our bed, her phone in her hands, typing something. When she heard me, she quickly locked the screen and set it face down on the nightstand. "Who were you texting?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. "Just my sister. I needed to tell someone." She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I'm scared, Michael." I sat down beside her, put my arm around her shoulders. She leaned into me, but her body felt stiff, tense, like she was holding something back. "We're going to be fine," I said. "I promise." But that night, after Rachel fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying that moment in the kitchen. That flicker of something across her face when I first told her. Something that looked almost like relief. The next morning, Rachel was already awake when I got up. She was sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop open, a cup of coffee going cold beside her. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Looking at our finances." She turned the laptop so I could see the spreadsheet on the screen. "We need to cut back. Immediately. Cancel the gym memberships. Cancel the streaming services. Stop eating out. Rachel, it's been 1 day. I'll find another job. We don't need to panic." "I'm not panicking. I'm being realistic." She closed the laptop with a sharp click. "I'm going to pick up more hours at the boutique. Maybe I can find a second job." It sounded supportive. It sounded like exactly what a good wife should say. But there was something in her voice, something cold and calculating, that made my skin crawl. "That's really sweet," I said carefully. "But you don't need to do that." "Not yet." "Well, someone has to think about our future." She stood up, grabbed her purse. "I'm going to work. I'll be home late. They need me to close tonight." She kissed me on the cheek, mechanical, routine, and left. I stood in the kitchen listening to her car pull out of the driveway, and I felt something crack inside my chest. Something that felt like the beginning of the end. James called me an hour later. How'd she take it? "I don't know," I admitted. She cried. She seemed upset. But something felt wrong. "Give it time," James said. "The mask always slips eventually. Nobody can pretend forever." But what if Rachel wasn't pretending? What if I was the one destroying our marriage by not trusting her? What if this whole test was just me sabotaging the one good thing in my life? I spent the day at home, pretending to send out resumes, pretending to job hunt, living inside my lie. Rachel came home at 9 that night, exhausted, smelling like perfume and retail. "How'd it go?" I asked. "Busy. Tiring." She kicked off her shoes. "Did you have any luck with applications?" "Sent out a few." "Nothing yet." She nodded, distant, and went straight upstairs. I heard the shower turn on. Heard her phone buzz on the counter where she'd left it. I shouldn't have looked. I know I shouldn't have. But I did. 3 messages from a number not saved in her contacts. "Did you tell him yet? We need to talk about this. Call me when you can." My blood turned to ice water. My hand started shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. "Did you tell him yet?" "Tell me what?" I heard the shower turn off. Quickly, I set the phone back exactly where she'd left it and walked into the living room, my heart hammering against my ribs. Rachel came downstairs 10 minutes later in her pajamas, hair wet, phone in hand. She glanced at the screen, and something passed over her face. Something I couldn't read. "I'm going to bed," she said. "You coming?" "In a bit." She went upstairs alone. I waited until I heard our bedroom door close, then I sat on the couch in the dark, trying to breathe, trying to think. Who was texting her? What hadn't she told me yet? Was there someone else? Was that what all of this was about? I thought about going upstairs. Confronting her. Demanding answers. But I couldn't. Not yet. The test wasn't over. I needed to see how this played out. I needed to know the whole truth, not just pieces of it. That night, I barely slept. I kept thinking about those messages. Kept imagining scenarios. Rachel with another man. Rachel planning to leave me. Rachel waiting for the perfect moment to destroy everything we'd built. But why would losing my job be that moment? Why would that make her leave? Unless she'd been looking for an excuse. Unless she'd been waiting for me to fail, to give her a reason to walk away without looking like the bad guy. The thought made me sick. 2 days passed. Rachel grew more distant. More cold. She stopped asking how the job hunt was going. Stopped trying to make me feel better. She worked late every night, came home exhausted, went straight to bed. We barely spoke. We barely looked at each other. Our perfect life was crumbling, and I was the one holding the sledgehammer. On the 4th night, I couldn't take it anymore. I waited until Rachel was asleep, then I went into the bathroom where she'd left her phone charging. My hands shook as I picked it up, entered her passcode, our anniversary, which felt like a sick joke now, and opened her messages. The unknown number had sent more texts. 5 more days. That's all we need. Make sure he doesn't suspect anything. Once this is done, everything changes. I felt like I was drowning. Like someone had wrapped steel cables around my chest and was pulling them tighter and tighter until I couldn't breathe. Everything changes. What was happening in 5 days? What was Rachel planning? And who was she planning it with? I scrolled up, looking for more context, looking for answers, but the conversation started just 3 days ago. Right after I'd told her about losing my job. My wife was planning something. Something she didn't want me to know about. Something that involved someone else. I put the phone back, crept out of the bathroom, and stood in our bedroom doorway watching Rachel sleep. She looked peaceful. Innocent. Like the woman I'd fallen in love with 7 years ago. But was any of it real? Had any of it ever been real? I went downstairs, sat on the couch in the dark, and I cried. Actually cried. Because I'd started this test hoping to prove myself wrong, hoping to find out that Rachel was loyal and true and everything I wanted her to be. Instead, I was finding out something much worse. Something I wasn't prepared for. James was right. The mask always slips. And Rachel's was starting to crack. The next morning, Rachel was already gone when I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Had to go in early. Don't wait up tonight. Inventory. Inventory. Right. Or maybe she was meeting whoever had been texting her. Maybe she was planning whatever needed to happen in 4 more days. I crumpled the note and threw it in the trash. My phone rang. Unknown number. For a second, my heart stopped, thinking it might be whoever was texting Rachel. But when I answered, it was a woman's voice I didn't recognize. Is this Michael Carter? Yes. Mr. Carter, this is Jennifer Walsh. I'm a private investigator. I was hired to look into some financial irregularities at Henderson Financial Group. Your name came up in our investigation. I need to speak with you as soon as possible. My stomach dropped. Financial irregularities? I don't know anything about, Mr. Carter, I'm not accusing you of anything. But I have information that I think you need to hear. Information about your wife. The world tilted sideways. What about my wife? Not over the phone. Can we meet? There's a coffee shop on Maple Street. The Corner Cafe. 1 hour. She hung up before I could respond. I stood there holding my phone, my mind racing. A private investigator. Looking into financial irregularities. What did any of that have to do with Rachel? I looked at the clock. I had 1 hour to decide if I was going to that meeting. 1 hour to decide if I was ready to learn whatever truth was waiting for me. But I already knew I was going. Because at this point, I needed answers more than I needed air. My stomach dropped. Financial irregularities. I don't know anything about, Mr. Carter, I'm not accusing you of anything. But I have information that I think you need to hear. Information about your wife. The world tilted sideways. What about my wife? Not over the phone. Can we meet? There's a coffee shop on Maple Street. The Corner Cafe. 1 hour. She hung up before I could respond. I stood there holding my phone, my mind racing. A private investigator. Looking into financial irregularities. What did any of that have to do with Rachel? I looked at the clock. I had 1 hour to decide if I was going to that meeting. 1 hour to decide if I was ready to learn whatever truth was waiting for me. But I already knew I was going. Because at this point, I needed answers more than I needed air. I don't understand, I said, even though I was starting to understand perfectly. Your wife has been meeting with David Chen for the past 3 months. They've been moving money. Large amounts of money. Money that doesn't belong to her. What money? Jennifer Walsh looked at me with something like pity. Mr. Carter, when was the last time you checked your savings account? My heart stopped. Actually stopped. What? Check it. Right now. With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. Went to our joint savings account. The account where we kept our emergency fund. The account that had $40,000 in it last time I checked. The balance showed $237. No, I whispered. No, no, no. She's been draining it slowly over the past 2 months, Jennifer said quietly. Small transfers that wouldn't trigger any alerts. 5,000 here. 3,000 there. All going to an account in David Chen's name. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Why? Why would she do this? Because David Chen promised her a return on investment. Told her he could triple her money. Turn 40,000 into 120,000. It's a classic scam. And your wife fell for it. But why wouldn't she tell me? Why would she hide this? Jennifer Walsh's expression darkened. That's what I need to talk to you about. Because it gets worse. I looked up at her, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. How could it possibly get worse? She pulled out one more document. A legal form. And when I saw what it was, my entire world collapsed. It was a life insurance policy. On me. For $500,000. Taken out 3 weeks ago. With Rachel as the sole beneficiary. My blood turned to ice. My hand started shaking so badly I dropped my phone. No, I said. No, she wouldn't. She couldn't. But Jennifer Walsh's face told me everything I needed to know. My wife wasn't just stealing from me. She was planning something much, much worse. And I had 4 days to figure out what it was before everything changed. Before I became worth more to her dead than alive. The coffee shop sounds faded into white noise. I stared at that life insurance policy like it was written in a language I'd forgotten how to read. Mr. Carter. Jennifer Walsh's voice seemed to come from very far away. Do you understand what I'm showing you? I understood. God help me, I understood perfectly. When? I managed to ask. When did she take this out? 3 weeks and 2 days ago. Right around the time she started meeting with David Chen. Jennifer pulled out more papers. And there's something else. 2 nights ago, we had surveillance on your house. We heard your wife on the phone in your bedroom. My head snapped up. You were listening to our house. We were parked outside. Your bedroom window was open. We have audio. She pulled out a small recording device. Do you want to hear it? No. I didn't want to hear it. I wanted to wake up from this nightmare. I wanted to go back to 3 months ago when I was just paranoid and stupid instead of paranoid and right. But I nodded. Jennifer pressed play. Rachel's voice came through the speaker, hushed and urgent. I need to make sure he doesn't see this coming, she was saying. The policy is active. Everything's in place. I just need to be ready. Another voice, male, unfamiliar. And you're sure about this? Once we do this, there's no going back. I'm sure, Rachel said, and her voice was cold. So cold. I've thought about it for months. Ever since I found out about the policy at his work. $500,000, David. That's enough to start over. That's enough for both of us. What if he finds out? What if he suspects something? He won't. Michael's too trusting. Too stupid. He still thinks we're happy. He still thinks I love him. She laughed. Actually laughed. God, it's almost too easy. The male voice, David Chen, spoke again. What about the timeline? Soon. I want to be ready if he loses his job. If he's unemployed, if he's depressed, it'll be easier to make it look like, you know. Like he did it himself. My stomach lurched. I thought I might throw up right there in the cafe. An accident would be cleaner, David was saying. No. Too many questions. But if he's depressed, if he's lost his job, if he's drinking. Rachel's voice trailed off, but the implication hung in the air like poison gas. The recording ended. I sat there, frozen, my mind unable to process what I'd just heard. My wife. My Rachel. Planning to kill me. Planning to make it look like I'd killed myself. Planning to collect $500,000 and run away with some con artist she'd been meeting in secret. Mr. Carter, Jennifer said gently. We need to contact the police. Right now. But I couldn't move. Couldn't speak. Because 3 days ago, I'd told Rachel I lost my job. I'd created the perfect conditions for her plan. I'd walked right into the trap she'd been setting. Oh God, I whispered. Oh God, what have I done? What do you mean? I told her I lost my job. 3 days ago. I was testing her. I wanted to see if she'd leave me if I didn't have money. I looked up at Jennifer, horror flooding through me. I gave her exactly what she needed. I'm unemployed. I'm home all day. I'm vulnerable. Jennifer's face went pale. You need to leave your house. Right now. You need to go somewhere safe. I need to go home, I said, standing up so fast my chair fell over. I need to get proof. I need, Mr. Carter, your wife is planning to murder you. You can't go home. But I was already moving toward the door. Because I needed to see. I needed proof with my own eyes. I needed to look at Rachel and know for certain that everything Jennifer had told me was real. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. When I pulled into the driveway, Rachel's car was there. She was home early. Why was she home early? I walked inside, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Rachel? In here. Her voice came from the kitchen. I walked in and found her standing by the counter, a strange expression on her face. There was a glass of water in her hand. You're home early, I said. Slow day. They let me go. She held out the glass. You look pale. Are you feeling okay? Here, drink some water. I stared at that glass. At her hand holding it out to me. At her face, so concerned, so loving, so perfectly fake. I'm not thirsty, I said. Something flickered in her eyes. Michael, you look sick. Just drink it. It'll make you feel better. I said I'm not thirsty. Her smile tightened. Don't be difficult. Just drink the water. We stood there, locked in a standoff, and I could see her mind working. Could see her realizing that something had changed. That I knew something. Where were you this morning? She asked, setting the glass down slowly. Coffee shop. Meeting a friend. What friend? Does it matter? Rachel's eyes narrowed. You're acting strange, Michael. What's going on? I could ask you the same question. I pulled out my phone, hands shaking, and opened my banking app. Turned the screen so she could see it. Want to explain why our savings account is empty? The color drained from her face. Michael, I can explain, can you? Can you explain where $40,000 went? Can you explain who David Chen is? Can you explain the life insurance policy you took out on me 3 weeks ago? She took a step back, her hand going to her mouth. How did you? Who told you? It doesn't matter who told me. What matters is that I know. I know everything, Rachel. I know what you're planning. For a long moment, she just stared at me. Then something changed in her face. The mask she'd been wearing for months, maybe years, finally fell away completely. What was underneath was cold. Empty. Nothing like the woman I'd married. You weren't supposed to find out, she said quietly. Not yet. So it's true. All of it. Michael, you have to understand. Understand what? That you were planning to kill me? That you were going to steal my money and make it look like I killed myself? It wasn't supposed to be like this. Her voice rose, desperate now. David said it would be easy. He said we could just take the money and disappear. But then he started talking about the insurance policy and how much more we could get if. I trusted you, I said, and my voice broke. I loved you. I know, Rachel said, and there was something almost like regret in her eyes. Almost. I'm sorry, Michael. I really am. But I can't go back to being poor. I can't go back to struggling and worrying about money and living paycheck to paycheck. David promised me a better life. He promised me everything you couldn't give me. I gave you everything I had. It wasn't enough. She said it simply, brutally, like she was stating a fact. It was never going to be enough. I heard sirens in the distance, getting closer. Jennifer must have called the police the moment I left the cafe. Rachel heard them too. Her eyes went wide with panic. Michael, please. We can fix this. We can work this out. I'll give the money back. I'll cancel the policy. We can forget this ever happened. But we both knew that was a lie. We both knew there was no going back from this. The sirens got louder. Closer. Rachel looked toward the door, then back at me, and I saw her calculating. Trying to figure out if there was still a way out of this. Still a way to salvage her plan. I never lost my job, I said quietly. She froze. What? I made it up. I was testing you. I wanted to see what you'd do if I didn't have money anymore. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Guess I found out. The look on her face was pure rage. You set me up. You were going to kill me, Rachel. You don't get to be angry. The police cars pulled into our driveway, their lights flashing red and blue through our windows. Our neighbors were coming outside, watching, whispering. Our perfect life was ending in the most public way possible. Rachel ran. She bolted for the back door, but I grabbed her arm. She spun around, and for a second, I saw something in her eyes that actually scared me. Something wild and desperate and dangerous. Let me go, she hissed. No. She raised her hand, and I saw she was holding something. A kitchen knife. When had she grabbed that? How had I not noticed? Rachel, don't, the front door burst open. Police officers flooded in, guns drawn, shouting commands. Drop the weapon. Get on the ground. Hands where we can see them. Rachel looked at the police, then at me, then at the knife in her hand. For a moment, I thought she might actually use it. Might try to finish what she'd started. But then something in her broke, and she dropped the knife with a clatter and fell to her knees, sobbing. I didn't mean it, she was crying. I wasn't really going to do it. I was just scared. I was just confused. But her tears didn't move me anymore. I'd seen what was underneath them now. I'd heard what she really thought of me. Stupid. Trusting. Too easy to manipulate. The police cuffed her, read her rights, walked her past me toward the door. She looked at me one last time. I did love you, she said. Once. In the beginning. I really did. I didn't answer. Didn't know if I believed her. Didn't know if it mattered. They took her away, and I stood in my kitchen, in my perfect house, in my perfect life, and I realized it had all been built on lies. Everything I thought was real had been a performance. Everything I thought I knew had been a carefully constructed illusion. Jennifer Walsh appeared in my doorway. Are you okay, Mr. Carter? No, I said honestly. I'm really not. But I was alive. Rachel hadn't gotten the chance to put her plan into action. The test I'd created to expose her had ended up saving my life. What happens now? I asked. Now you press charges. Now Rachel and David Chin go to prison for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and embezzlement. Jennifer paused. And now you figure out how to rebuild your life. That night, I sat alone in my house, and I thought about everything that had happened. How close I'd come to dying. How I'd almost become just another statistic. Another sad story about a man who couldn't handle losing his job. My phone rang. James. I heard, he said. Mike, I'm so sorry. I never thought, you were right, I interrupted. You told me to test her. You told me to find out the truth. If I hadn't listened to you. I couldn't finish the sentence. Are you going to be okay? I looked around my empty house. At the life I'd built that had turned out to be nothing but a facade. At the future I'd planned that would never happen now. I don't know, I said. Ask me tomorrow. But tomorrow came, and I still didn't have an answer. Because how do you recover from learning that the person you loved most in the world wanted you dead? How do you trust anyone again after that? The investigation continued. David Chen was arrested trying to board a flight to Hong Kong. The money Rachel had stolen was frozen, though most of it was already gone, spent on David's gambling debts and expensive hotels where they'd met for their secret rendezvous. Rachel's lawyer tried to claim she'd been manipulated. That David had groomed her, convinced her to participate in his scheme against her will. But the recordings told a different story. Rachel's voice had been cold and calculating. She'd known exactly what she was doing. A week after her arrest, I got a letter from her in jail. I shouldn't have opened it. Should have thrown it away. But I couldn't help myself. Michael, it read, I know you'll never forgive me. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I need you to know the truth. Not the truth the police think they know. The real truth. My hands shook as I kept reading. I was pregnant. 4 years ago. Remember? We were so happy. We were going to be parents. And then I lost the baby. And something inside me died too. I blamed you. I know that's not fair. I know it wasn't your fault. But I couldn't stop thinking that if we had more money, if we'd had better insurance, if we'd been able to see better doctors, maybe our baby would have lived. That's when I started resenting you. Started resenting our life. Started looking for a way out. David was that way out. He promised me a fresh start. A chance to forget the pain. And I wanted that so badly that I was willing to do anything. Even. She didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. I know it doesn't excuse what I did. Nothing excuses it. But I wanted you to understand where it came from. I wanted you to know that once, before everything went wrong, I did love you. I loved you so much it hurt. I just forgot how to hold on to that love when the grief got too heavy. The letter ended there, no signature, no goodbye. I sat with that letter for a long time, trying to decide how I felt. Part of me wanted to feel sympathy for her. Part of me wanted to believe that grief had twisted her into someone she wasn't meant to be. But mostly, I just felt empty. Because even if her explanation was true, even if losing our baby had broken something fundamental inside her, it didn't change what she'd become. It didn't change what she planned to do to me. Love doesn't justify murder. Pain doesn't excuse betrayal. And forgiveness has limits. 3 months later, Rachel pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit murder. She got 15 years. David Chen got 20. I sold the house. Too many bad memories. Too many ghosts haunting every room. I moved to a small apartment across town. Started over. Started fresh. James helped me through it. Helped me remember that not everyone was a liar. Not everyone was just waiting for the chance to stab you in the back. But I didn't date. Couldn't imagine trusting someone enough to let them close again. The paranoia that had saved my life had also poisoned my ability to love. 6 months after Rachel's sentencing, I was at a coffee shop when someone sat down across from me. It was Jennifer Walsh, the private investigator. "Mr. Carter," she said. "How are you holding up?" "I'm alive," I said. "That's something." She studied my face. "You did the right thing, you know." Testing her. Finding out the truth. Did I? I asked. Because sometimes I wonder. What if I'd just trusted her? What if I'd never started doubting? Would things have turned out differently? "You'd be dead," Jennifer said bluntly. "She was planning to kill you whether you tested her or not. You just found out in time to stop her." I knew she was right. But knowing didn't make it easier. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Of course. How do you do this job? How do you spend your life uncovering people's secrets and watching marriages fall apart and still believe in anything good?" Jennifer smiled sadly. "Because for every Rachel, there are 10 spouses who stay faithful. For every David Chen, there are 100 people who choose honesty over greed. The bad stories are just louder. They drown out the good ones. But the good ones are still there. You just have to look harder to find them." She stood up to leave, then paused. "You'll trust again someday, Mr. Carter. It won't be easy. It won't be soon. But you will. Because the alternative is letting Rachel win. Letting her steal not just your money and your safety, but your ability to love. Don't give her that power." She walked away, leaving me alone with my coffee and my thoughts. And slowly, very slowly, I started to believe her. A year after everything happened, I ran into an old friend from college. Her name was Maria. She was divorced, raising a kid on her own, working 2 jobs and still smiling. We got coffee. Then we got coffee again. Then dinner. "I should probably tell you," I said on our 3rd date, "I have some serious trust issues." Maria laughed. "Me too. My ex-husband cheated on me with my best friend. I didn't leave the house for a month. My ex-wife tried to murder me for insurance money." Maria's eyes went wide. "Okay, you win. That's way worse." And somehow, we both started laughing. Actually laughing. Because sometimes, when the pain gets absurd enough, laughter is the only response that makes sense. We took it slow. Very slow. I told Maria everything, the test, the discovery, the betrayal. She listened without judgment, without pity, just with understanding. I get it, she said. Being hurt makes you want to build walls. Makes you want to test everyone before you let them in. But Michael, you can't live your whole life waiting for people to betray you. Sometimes you just have to take the leap and hope they catch you. And if they don't, then you fall. And you get back up. And you try again. She took my hand. That's what courage is. Not the absence of fear. Just the willingness to try anyway. It took me 2 years to propose to Maria. 2 years of slowly learning to trust again. 2 years of proving to myself that not everyone was Rachel. That not every relationship was built on lies. Our wedding was small. Just close friends and family. James was my best man. Maria's daughter was the flower girl. As I stood at the altar watching Maria walk toward me, I thought about Rachel. About the letter she'd sent me from prison. About how grief and resentment had turned her into someone unrecognizable. And I made a choice. I chose to forgive her. Not because she deserved it. Not because what she did was okay. But because holding on to that anger was like drinking poison and expecting her to die from it. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean trust. It just meant letting go of the weight I'd been carrying around for 2 years. It meant choosing freedom over bitterness. When the priest asked if I took Maria to be my wife, I said yes without hesitation. Because I'd learned something important through all of this. Testing people doesn't protect you from being hurt. Walls don't keep you safe. Paranoia doesn't prevent betrayal. The only thing that saves you is choosing, every single day, to keep your heart open despite the risk. To keep loving despite the possibility of pain. To keep trusting despite knowing that trust can be broken. Rachel had tried to take everything from me. My money. My life. My ability to love. But standing there with Maria's hand in mine, I realized she'd failed. I was still here. Still breathing. Still capable of hope. And that was the greatest victory of all. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed creating it. Like, share, subscribe and comment on the lessons learnt. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. See you in the next video.